on January 14th at
7:30.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call for attendance, please.
Sandy. Matt.
Here.
Kelly. Ken.
Here.
Lori here.
With regards to motion to approve the agenda, under,
All set?
I'm waiting for motion.
Oh, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
To amend it, you got a second first, correct? Make a motion to amend the consent agenda.
Oh, we're on the agenda, the original agenda.
Okay, I thought we just did it. Okay. I'll second. I'll make it.
This thing. Any discussion?
Well,
We're on the agenda, right? Not
Right.
the consent agenda.
Correct.
but if you want something, I guess it really doesn't matter at what point in time you do it. If you want something off of the consent agenda and add it to the agenda, now is just as good a time as the consent agenda. So
Okay.
you'd be amending the agenda.
All right, I make a motion to amend the agenda. Take off number 4 and we'll put it down to new business. And number 2.
So,
Put that down, the payables.
Okay, so number 2 will be number 7.
okay.
And the consent agenda, approval of accounts payable.
Yes. And number 4 will be number 8.
All of number 4?
Can we break it up?
Sure.
Well, we'll take it all down.
Okay.
Okay. I will amend my original motion and approve the agenda as amended.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Item number F, open session. Anyone wanting to discuss the agenda items only? Hi. We got the time on.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm looking at item number D. Supervisor and Lisa Marcus Pressman to attend citizen planner classes from January 13th through February 24th, 2015 on Tuesday nights in Port Huron, $295 plus mileage. I understand that supervisors are invited to this meeting and it is a good education for them. It's basically about planning and zoning. And with our audit and being $32,000 over budget, I think that we need to trim at the end of this budget year. I think we need to trim some expenses. And I do have this Township Guide to Planning and Zoning, and every item on the Citizens Planner Classroom Series I noticed is in this book. So it's a great reference book, and being that the Township Supervisor has access to the MTA lawyer and our attorney, if there was questions, I'm sure that for now, and because we're over budget, I would think that that would maybe be a less expensive way. Just because this is 7-week class, and when you're talking about mileage, you know, it's 50 miles, I think both ways to Port Huron from here, something like that.
Actually, oh, wait,
Something like that. So we're talking about mileage for 7 weeks. And the other thing is, I know when I was working in, whenever I was allowed to give in money for education, I had to, I was given so much money to spend and the rest I had to pay, especially if it was, and it had to be work related. And the other thing is, I had to prove I attended and I had to prove that I had a acceptable mark to be reimbursed. My son got a master's degree that same way. He fronted $4,000 for that whole thing. So I'm just concerned, and the other thing is education budgeted, and are we within the budget for education? That's another concern. So I am really concerned about being $32,000 over budget. I know we have money in savings, but that isn't the point. On my personal budget, every year I budget so much money. I don't want to use my savings account. I want to budget money, and if I can't, it's not within my budget, then I just don't do those things. So that's my comment, okay?
thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on to next item. Unfinished business, there isn't any. Moving on to new business, item number 1, we have St. Clair County Commissioner Chairman Jeff Bone to discuss the waterfront park. Yes.
Actually, covering for Mr. Graytop tonight, he couldn't make it. Here to discuss the county's participation a little bit in the waterfront park that you obviously have here in Cottrellville Township. One of the focuses of the St. Clair County Parks and Rec is to either acquire or support acquisitions of waterfront properties. I've been on the board currently 10 years. When I first got on the board, the only county park that existed at the time was the Goodles County Park. We went through the process at the time. The property in Port Huron came up for sale, which is now known as the Fort Gratiot Waterfront Park, which is located in Fort Gratiot. Recently, the county's participated in some shoreline restoration projects with the Atchison folks. If any of you have ever got the opportunity to go to Port Huron, they redid a mile of shoreline. Currently, the county is working with the city of Marysville on the demo of the Edison plant, 20 acres worth of redevelopment on the waterfront, arguably one of the biggest things that's probably going to happen in this area in a long time. You look at the support to the Cottrellville Waterfront Park. I'll get into that a little bit. You have some information that I've given you as far as some correspondence. We're currently working with Clay Township as far as a park down in the Clay Township area. Either county owns parks or we participate in the waterfront. These are funded through the Michigan Natural Trust Fund. For any of you that aren't familiar with the Michigan Natural Trust Fund, the Michigan Natural Trust Fund grants are funded through the oil and gas leases. With the state of Michigan has a pot of money, and you have to competitively fill out the grant, and it gets scored out, and they determine whether they're going to fund your projects. Up to 76% can get funded for waterfront acquisitions. Like I said, it's part of the county-wide master plan. We feel it is a big asset to have these waterfront parks located throughout our county. If you look at the county-wide initiative, the Discover the Blue marketing campaign, I don't know how many of you are familiar with that. That's roughly a $500,000 marketing campaign that has multiple partners involved in it. That's also part of the Pure Michigan brand. The Discover the Blue is currently number 4. It goes between number 4 and number 5 as far as hits on the website, the advertising and promotions for this area. And St. Clair County has 115 miles of shoreline, starting from Fairhaven all the way up to just south of Lakeport State Park. So we feel it is a huge asset. The county, if you go back to the second page on here, this is a resolution that was passed from the county board on March 4th of 2010 that said that the county's Parks and Rec would put in up to $100,000 as far as the matching funds for the township for the acquisition of this property. And you obviously went through, you've received monies. I think the county's portion, if I'm not mistaken, was roughly $53,000 on this. As part of it, if you get into some of the demolition, that's some of the things that you're going to hear the fellows from Huron Consultant talk about a little bit this evening. I talked to Kelly originally. The county owns the landfill, where essentially the material is going to come. We originally were going to waive the tipping fees for all the demo material. We've done that as far as other Parks and Rec projects that we've supported. A lot of times some of these waterfront acquisitions require some cleanup and materials need to be removed, and the county's put the tipping fees aside. If you look in the third category here, as far as I know, they're going to talk about inspections and those types of things. If you dispose in a type 2 landfill is essentially landfills that have the ability to take asbestos material. I want to, when you talk about asbestos materials, we're currently tearing down the Edison plant in Marysville. We're not, but our the contractors. 12 cabins is not a lot of material being handled at the landfill. The only thing that we will be looking for if the materials are deemed asbestos materials, there's some additional cost on the county's end for handling of these materials. And I have on the third page, if you flip to that, just so you get an understanding of it. A 30-yard dumpster, for example, is generally what you use as far as the box goes. Average weight in a 30-yard dumpster is between 4.5 to 5 tons. Okay, so for example, 30-yard dump at 5 tons, it's $34 per ton to handle that material. It's $170 per dump. Because I know there's going to be a lot of questions as far as how much is it going to cost us additional to get rid of those materials. That, trust me, just covers the cost of having to have the contractors handle that particular material out at the landfill. So it is a nominal cost. It is something that we've got to incur, and like I said, this for us is more of a partnership type of arrangement because of the township taking this project on. It fits really the master plan of the overall county. I'm not the asbestos expert in the room. I know these guys will talk a little bit further about it. I just want to talk a little bit about the history, how the county's participation, what the county's willing to do today, and we'll do whatever we can to assist in this. Huron Consultant, we just tore down probably 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago. We tore down our old jail, our old YMCA site. We had a day treatment night watch. We had an EOC. Huron Consultants at the time was our consultant on site, so I know they are your engineering firm, so they have the ability to handle this type of stuff too. So I'm just going to open it up for any questions that you may have on the county's piece of it or any of that.
So it's now gonna be $170 per load?
$170 correct.
Per container?
Yeah. Could be less. It's going to come. That would be the high side. We've just got to the additional handling, because when you handle the material, we have to pay the contractors additional money. If you were to just bring normal trash, so to speak, out to landfill and we dumped it in the landfill and it just gets moved like the rest of the trash, there's no additional cost to incur for us. It's all in the cost of doing business. When you're dealing with, if the material is deemed asbestos, this is worst case scenario. If it is deemed that, then if we have to go to those additional, we have to take the additional precautions, then those are additional expenses that the contractor on site has to incur, then essentially becomes a pass-through on the county.
So even if we,
I think 11, we were throwing 11 dumpsters around, that kind of number. Even if you doubled that number and you said you had 20 dumpsters, there's other people that would be able to tell you better than I would how much material would be coming out of there. You're just, as a board, I'm assuming you're going to want to get your head around how much is this, going to cost to remove it. Just my personal 2 cents, those cabins, clearing that property up and getting rid of those cabins. I don't know about you guys. I went through them earlier, and personally I thought they were an eyesore, but that's just my personal opinion. So.
sorry, just giving them the cost. So it'd be about $3,400 for if we had 20 dumpsters, which what I was
Worst
told
case
is
scenario,
that would
assuming
be
it's
really
asbestos
high volume.
material, okay?
Right.
So I just want to give you, I mean, we have an estimate here. You see estimated cost for $1,000 to $1,500. That's assuming everything. There again, if we have to handle all the material as asbestos, which is not a big issue, like I said, trust me, that Edison plant that's coming down is 100 times bigger than what you guys producing on the cabins.
Now, will you determine it up there, or will it be done down before it's loaded, whether it's gonna be
It'll be-
hazardous or non-hazardous?
I'll let those guys defer to
Okay.
that.
But the non-hazardous, there's no charge for, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
But I guess the question that comes up, do you spend all the additional money to determine that versus just us
Yeah.
handling it on
Page
our
two,
end?
yeah.
Versus just us handling it on our end as all the materials, so.
Anybody else?
But you're saying that, and maybe I'm misunderstanding. So if there is that, you'd have to determine what it is before you handle it, right? Because there's a difference between a wood building and a building that has asbestos, the way you would handle it. You'd have to know before you start.
Well, I mean, I'll defer to them. It's my understanding, if you find, if there's some material that is deemed asbestos and somebody's gonna have to determine that, if there is, then the landfill essentially, probably the best thing or the cheapest thing to do would just to be handle it all as asbestos material in our dump site. Now, you know, asbestos materials and those, they get commingled all the time. But that's just, you have a particular cell where you dump those particular items.
If for some reason, some of it was mismarked and got up there, between the consultants that are going to do the examinations in the landfill that's gonna accept it, is the township left with any liability whatsoever?
When you talk about liability, you're talking about dumping asbestos material and it didn't go into,
If something happened, somebody comes into the landfill and says that they got asbestos from something that came out of Cottrellville, is Cottrellville free and
you
clear?
know how, I
that?
mean, we handle asbestos material
I know you
on
do.
a regular day.
But the township will be responsible for it, isn't it, from birth to grave?
Boy, I couldn't, I'm gonna defer, those are the questions you can ask them, but I can assure you, we handle, you know, anytime we tear down buildings, we run into asbestos on a regular basis. I'll defer that to them.
Well, they are, but I mean, if it comes back to the landfill, they don't control that. I assume you're familiar with their routine up there. If the landfill did something improper or something like that, when does the township get free and clear of their obligation or their potential obligation?
I couldn't tell you that, but we are in the landfill business and we handle this type of material on a regular basis to say that the liability would come back. I mean, once it essentially goes into the hole, so to speak, or the area where we handle asbestos, it's commingled with a whole lot of other people's.
Oh, I understand how it works. I just wondered at what point.
I don't know, I'm gonna defer those questions to these guys. They're a lot more, you know. Any other and you know, I'll sit here and you can tag team the questions back and forth if there's some things.
Oh, I'm just asking, so, you know, we don't want this to get more out of hand than it already has.
Everybody good? Okay. So, are we ready to move on to new business number 2? And that is Huron Consultants to discuss material removal from waterfront park.
Good evening, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
We're here today to discuss the material removal. Thank you, Jeff, for opening all that discussion. What we have right now is demo debris on site that required by the DEQ to be either sampled and classified as asbestos or treated all as asbestos and just move it out with the qualified contractor and a hauler to the landfill. So as your engineer, we're going to manage the project for you. If you want to go out for bids, we will solicit for 3 or 4 bids, and we're going to recommend the lowest responsible bidder for you, and also provide on-site inspections throughout the process. And those are going to be used in a closeout report that is required by the DEQ. That's basically the general project in few sentences.
Says,
I missed something and went through. You're gonna, we've got a proposal here. Is this the one that we're talking about right
Yes.
now? Okay, so if if we accept this proposal and you do it, what do we need anybody else to give bids for or to do? Does that mean that you're gonna handle this?
Our role is to develop the specs and walk you through the bidding process and then help you in selecting the contractor, awarding the contractor, and then inspect the work. That's our role. We're not a contractor, we're your engineer. So a contractor have to give you a price to move the material and haul it to the landfill.
So whatever those fees are gonna be to get it loaded and hauled, this 5,000's on top of it, 4,900.
Yeah.
Okay. Just so I understand what the
Yeah.
proposal is gonna consist of, but we're still gonna have to have
A hauler and
a hauler and an inspector on site
Yes.
to pull samples and do all that.
yep. And the contractor could be the same as the hauler and the remover contractor. That could be one entity. And I'm going to introduce Jerry. Jerry Harris is our project manager. He's the environmental lead, and he holds a certificate necessary for the asbestos inspection and all those hazardous material. He's done many of those, very experienced, and you can ask him any technical questions. He's here to answer all these questions.
Good evening. Just wanted to recap a little bit about what I've heard earlier and about our proposal is that one of the questions came up was whether or not the site does contain asbestos. It's either it is or it isn't. The problem that we have, or that we are facing right now, is that yes, we can go out there and sample the different types of building materials to determine asbestos content, but the problem is that we can't identify all the materials. We might miss a building material that may contain asbestos. So it is customary within the industry that when there wasn't a asbestos survey conducted, then it is assumed or presumed that all the building materials does contain asbestos and you have to treat it as such. Even if we went out there and did sampling, we still would have to keep a careful eye out there, and if there was any asbestos that we identified later, we still would have to classify all that material as asbestos. So as a recommendation to the township, I would recommend that all the building material be removed as asbestos containing. Now that doesn't mean that it is asbestos, we're just taking the precautionary approach that would comply with all federal and state regulations. Going to our proposal is, the first stage is actually to develop specifications. And this is where we will provide a document to the contractor that's going to tell them the scope of work, the notification requirements, the decontamination requirements, the loading pads on the property where you bring in the 30-yard dumpsters, and what landfill to haul it off to. Then we can take that specifications and we can solicit bids from qualified contractors within the township, as many as you wish. We'll choose the best qualified or the cheapest price, whatever determination that the township has. And then once the project is awarded to the contractor, now the contractor has to be a state of Michigan approved asbestos abatement contractor, and their workers must have the appropriate training and accreditation by the state of Michigan. During the abatement, Huron proposes that we provide project management and air quality monitoring. So we propose that we will make sure that the contractor is upholding to the contract specifications, as well as complying with the federal and state regulations for asbestos. We'll also perform perimeter air monitoring around the site just to document the ambient air quality. Usually do about one sample at one boundary location. If more is warranted, we'll do so. We will also monitor the workers who are actually performing the abatement to make sure that they're below the permissible exposure limit that's set by OSHA. At the end of the project, we'll prepare a closeout document that will summarize all the project activities, our daily notes, the air monitoring, the copy of the notification, as well as a copy of the waste manifest. And that report will go to the township so that you have on your file. There was a question about whether the township is liable for asbestos at the landfill. I'm not a legal expert, but it's my understanding that the township does own the material from cradle to grave. And that even includes any operations that's conducted at the landfill site. So if something goes wrong at the landfill, I can't say whether or not the township is liable.
Sandy, any questions?
Yeah, we were talking about doing bids for hauling it away. I thought Terra, is that still the case?
Mm-hmm.
Is still going to handle the haul away?
Is it the same person that puts the material into the roll-offs is also, well, the same company is also the same company that hauls it away when you guys put the bids out?
Normally.
Normally, okay.
That all depends. Some companies, they have both of those operations together. There are other companies that actually load the containers up themselves. They hire another company to haul off the material.
So with my email that I sent with them, Terra, which do they do? Do they do both or one or the other?
I think Terra, my understanding is that they haul the waste
Just
off
haul
to
it.
the
They
landfill.
They don't put it into the roll-off.
We're using their roll-offs
Right.
and they're hauling it away,
Because
correct?
they-
So we don't need to get a bid on that, or since don't we have a deal with them? Or?
I didn't understand his email, that's why I forwarded it to you guys.
We assume that you want to go through the public bid, but the township, as a board, you can decide if you want to give it to Terra or continue that contract, and you only have to secure somebody else to actually move them, put them in the container.
Right.
Because a hauler, you have a hauler, but you need somebody to handle it.
Is that hard to find?
No, we can recommend
I mean, because
some
Terra
contractors.
verbally told me that they weren't gonna charge us extra to haul it off as asbestos. They said they were just gonna keep the same price.
Well, we can always structure the specifications that we can use Terra to haul off the waste, and then hire the asbestos abatement contractor to bring in a Bobcat to load up the
Right.
dumpsters. Yeah, we can always do that.
I mean, that would be a route that we could look at, right? I mean, because it's an
I
option.
guess
They're
that-
not,
I thought
because
we
they're
already
charging us
contracted with them.
$175 a roll-off, which is
Sure.
very extremely reasonable.
A lot of money.
And that's fine, it's up to the board.
But that's something that we can, that's an option, that we can have two different companies do that?
Yep.
Okay.
What's the difference in these two proposals? One's from
May.
to have you do the job, and that's only $2,700, but this one for $49 is to have you set out guidelines if you don't do it for somebody else to do it, so.
The first proposal you're looking at, that was back in May of last year, that's to do the asbestos survey before the demo. And that was for us to go out and identify where the asbestos material is and do the survey.
Okay.
And this way you can identify which material is hazardous or not. We don't have that right now, but we could still do that with the debris, but we may end up classifying everything as asbestos anyway, so. It's $2,700, just like what Jeff said, you survey everything and then you end up classifying everything as asbestos, so why you want to?
Just so I understand.
The second
If we
proposal.
decide to do this, the one that you did,
Mhm,
for the 2,700,
mhm,
and you classified all as hazardous,
mhm. We still have to do the second proposal.
Yeah.
To give you an inspector on site, develop the specs for the contractor to bid on the material, and produce the closeout documents. So there are two stages on this. We skip in the first one, maybe we're skipping the first one if you guys don't want to do it. So we go directly to developing the specs and going into construction.
so it's $5,000 to go into construction.
Mhm.
And that's, all that means is you're gonna follow the reports and go get quotes for another contractor to actually do the work.
Yes.
or it's 2,700 and you just deem it all as asbestos.
We don't know that. We have
No,
to
but I mean, for 2,700, you'll deem it all asbestos, treat it all as hazardous.
Most likely.
And then all 20 dumpsters go up there as hazardous.
Most likely, it's all be classified as asbestos.
But you still have to have an inspector on site, no matter, regardless which way.
This will not have an inspector on site?
No, that's only for the survey. 2,700 to do the survey.
But I can
But
tell you
the
that our,
survey, sorry,
excuse me, but I can tell you that our environmental professional does have the building inspector, a licensed building inspector on site while they're doing their air monitoring. So yes, Huron will provide an inspector on site should there be a need for us to sample a building material. But to kind of clarify the difference between both those proposals, the first proposal is, what typically happens prior to demolition, you do a asbestos survey. And what that does is, if you identify asbestos-containing materials, at that point, you put that into the demolition specs, and some of that material may need to be removed, some of it can remain in place, such as floor tile or roofing material, and thrown out into a landfill. Today, we're in the position where we don't know all the materials that contain asbestos, and it's all commingled together, and so all of it is suspect asbestos containing. So we have to treat the entire demolition debris as asbestos.
But now that you don't have to do the inspection, all you have to do is oversee it as they load it into trucks. Wouldn't it be more cost effective for the township to just treat it all as hazardous?
That's correct.
So then we need another quote that'll come in between these two?
From the abatement
Because you don't have to
contractor.
do this one now, or
Right.
most of this one, and you won't have to do all this,
Well, that,
because this one will all be, it'll all be treated. You won't have to do the samples, you won't have to treat it as anything, we'll just treat it right from the get as hazardous.
right, so the second proposal is, we still have to write the specifications for the contractor to bid on. We still have to have a representative on site to ensure that the contractor's meeting the contract specifications as well as the federal and state regulations. You still need to have the air monitoring to document the ambient air fibers around the site, and then you'll still need to have a closeout report at the very end. So the second part, or the second proposal, is actually the second phase of the project. We just kind of missed the first phase here.
No charge for that one, right?
No charge.
Okay, I don't have any other questions this time.
Laurie, do you have anything?
No.
Sandy?
So if we understand this correctly, you would retain Terra as the hauler, but we need to go out and get bids from a removal contractor only.
I
Is
think we should talk to Tara first.
Yeah, I think
haven't had
before we have you started on with
Well, I
Sandy,
think we haven't had anything in writing from them, and I'd like to just make sure we're on the same page with them.
Okay.
And then if we can find that out probably tomorrow, I can probably call you.
Okay, and if they can handle that, or the board would still like to use them, we're proceeding with only selecting a removal contractor, right?
well, I think we've got some other quotes already for removal contract, or other inspection qualified people. And if we already have a hauler, then I guess the last question is gonna be the loader and the inspector that stands on site. So I mean, I guess you'll also have to give us a quote for your inspector on site.
Well,
It's in here.
it's already into the second proposal. That's going to be part of the.
But we're not gonna go through all that. We won't have a pre-bid. We won't have to, do all of the sampling.
Yeah, for the building materials, no, you would not do the sampling for the building materials, because we're deeming that, all those materials as asbestos-containing material.
We wouldn't have the pre-bid meeting.
We would write the specifications, we would have a pre-bid meeting at a later date with the contractors, of your choosing. But they need to be state of Michigan asbestos abatement contractors and have properly licensed individuals.
I think what Ken is saying, if they select one contractor, do
Oh.
we still have to do it?
If we stayed with Imtira, let's just say that their price was the one that we agreed to go along with. We don't have to have a pre-bid for them.
No, it would just, I don't know, well, it would be
It would
a
be only the-
pre-project meeting or, you know, a conference call or so that they understand the specification, they understand the scope of work, so it won't be as strenuous as having, you know, 4 or 5
It
contractors.
won't be as expensive, right?
As expensive, correct.
There we go.
So
That's
it's-
all I'm talking about.
Okay,
So which of these items can we nix if a contractor is selected by the township without developing the specs?
I think some of the fees for under line item number 2, the pre-bid meeting, the bid assistance, I think that, I wouldn't say the entire amount, but it'd be far less than the $1,100 that we propose.
It would be like a couple hours maybe, just to coordinate the startup. And how about the first one, Jerry?
The first one, we still, yes, it's still, the monetary value there still remains the same. The second one, it can be reduced. The third one, it all depends on how many days they're gonna be out on site. I anticipate maybe 3 to 4 days max.
It all depends how
How fast
they can remove.
So, some contractor, and this is a nice thing about the specifications, we can specify how many days they need to be out on site. Otherwise, the contractor will just throw 2
Excuse
people
me,
out.
we have somebody talking.
We have 2 people on site, as opposed to having 6 people on site, so it takes 3 times longer. So we can put a schedule together and say you have to complete the project in 2, 3, 4 days. And then close
All
out
right.
reports the same.
I think we all got to talk about it a little bit more before we can go ahead on any of it.
Okay.
And then,
Just, I'd like to just make one comment. I talked to Mark Brochu, our Parks and Rec Director, and I actually just spoke with John on the way in the door here. Per the grant requirements, any structures that you deem that do not reuse for a recreational purpose have to be torn down. So I just want to clarify that because of the acceptance of the grant. I use the old proverbial, you can't use the grant to buy a junkyard on the water and you don't remove the junk. So that is a specific requirement of that grant.
I think they're all down, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm just saying, so people question why you can't leave, you cannot accept Michigan Natural Trust Fund money and not clean up your properties.
Oh, no, it's gonna be cleaned
Yeah,
up.
I'm just saying that is I'm just saying you couldn't leave the cabins there unless you deemed a portion of them that were going to be recreational in nature for specific purposes. So my point being is that you could not tear a good majority of them down, hence you chose to tear them all down. So you don't quote unquote get around that issue. And John could elaborate more about that, but that is specific for the grant. I just wanted to emphasize that too.
Yeah, if you wanted to know that, it says specifically in the acquisition project procedures, it says with respect to existing structures, if there are any structures on the property, you must submit a written plan and schedule for the proposed use or removal. Existing structures should be removed or made ready for appropriate use within 90 days after completion of the acquisition. Appropriate uses include nature centers, park office, or maintenance buildings that house staff or equipment for the project site only, and restroom buildings. So unless you were going to be able to use those structures for that purpose, then they had to be removed.
I think they're all in town now.
Well, I mean, that's,
Thank
if I understand,
To
that's
my,
what-
to
Thank
my
you.
point being, if anyone questioned you why you tore them down, you couldn't,
Oh.
unless you repurposed them for that particular use, you couldn't leave them standing. So,
Thank you. Now I lost my agenda. Okay, are we good, you guys? All right, moving on to item number 3. Motion to approve the creation of an industrial facility tax abatement district. Barb?
You all received information in your packet about the industrial facility. There's supposed to be another gentleman here, I don't know him, so I don't know if he's here. I had received a letter from Mark Klein, and he is the accountant for the new property owners, which used to be Manor Technology. It's now the 26 LLC. And what they are proposing or requesting is a industrial development facility. In their case, it would be a rehabilitation area, district. And what this is actually a tax abatement for a certain number of years. What you would be doing tonight is basically just stating, yes, we'd like to proceed and to set a public hearing to form the district only. And in this case, it's just the parcel that that is owned by them. As a board, you could, take a whole industrial park and make it a district if you want to. But in this case, it's just their request for an industrial development district. So you would do the district first. You would need to hold a public hearing for that district. Then they would supply the actual application. And on their application, then they would give you the dollar amount that's going to cost to rehabilitate inside. I'll have to go out and take a look at the building to see whether or not it's 50% obsolescence inside of the building. What happens with the actual abatement as you go through the process is once it's finally approved, and all this paperwork also has to go to the state tax commission for final approval, is the building value that's there now would be put on an industrial tax exemption roll. That's the abatement. And in their instance, it's a rehabilitation, which would mean they would only be charged the frozen value of that building times the regular millage rate. The land value would still stay there for the length of the abatement. But what you're doing basically tonight is just starting the very process to develop a district, and you have to set a public hearing and in the public hearing process, the property owner is notified and all the taxing jurisdictions notified. A notice is put in the paper. You do it on your normal basis that you would say for planning or ZBA or any other notification you do. And you hold the public hearing, and you would also do a special meeting at that time if you proceed with it to pass the resolution to create that district. And this is basically what they're doing. The maximum they can do is up to 12 years, but that'll be down the way as to what they actually request and whether or not you want to do that. But this is just to do the district. Any questions?
Any questions?
What Barb is bringing this up for tonight is that we need to set the hearing date, if that's what we want to do, is to proceed with allowing the IFT. And the earliest date that we could have for a hearing date would be February 12th, which is a Thursday, because it has to be published in the paper, and after 15 days after the publication in the paper is the earliest we can have a hearing. So the earliest I could get this in the paper would be a week from next Wednesday, which would be January 28th, and the earliest date after that would be February 12th.
That's a Thursday, is that?
That's a Thursday.
Could we postpone our meeting 1 week, have it the third week of the month then, so we can handle it all in our meeting? Is that what we would do, or would we bound it over for March meeting?
Or have a hearing, just
A special hearing?
A special hearing.
Special meeting? For a hearing?
Kind of like a ZBA type of thing.
How quickly?
How do they-
You could do a public hearing, call it a special meeting with a public hearing, and then that way you could have your hearing and make a motion regarding it at that. If you do just the public hearing, then you're gonna have to have another meeting to
Right.
make a motion, because you can't do the business at the public hearing.
Yeah.
That's
So
how I do it.
a hearing with a special meeting.
On the 12th?
Well, if we have a special meeting, we can do it all at once, you just said.
Right. But you have to label it as a hearing and a special meeting.
Well,
Is everybody home on the 12th?
today I am. Never even thought about that.
It's the day after our board meeting.
Actually, it is.
Yeah, it
It
is.
is.
That's why I didn't know if we wanted to move our board meeting over 1 day. We couldn't get that in the paper 1 day earlier, so we could try to do it all at once.
The Voice is printed every Wednesday,
For hearing papers every day.
but our normal course of publication is The Voice. And that's where the majority of our residents look.
Okay.
February 12th,
Sure.
7:30. Okay, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion that we set a date of February 12th at 7:30 for the hearing and special meeting for action taken with regard to Mr. Klein's request for an IFT district being created.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Matt, second, I need to know.
Uh-huh.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4. Thank you, Barb. Motion to approve the resignation of Michael Riley as ordinance enforcer. A motion?
Hold on, I'm ready.
Sorry.
That's okay.
It was a long motion you made.
Yeah.
Can I get a second?
Well, I'll second. We never met him, so I guess letting him leave, we'll never miss him.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve payment of St. Clair County Chapter MTA dues for $25 for 2015.
I'll make a motion to approve the payment of the St. Clair County Chapter MTA dues of $25 for 2015. Going backwards.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 6, yep. Supervisor to attend the St. Clair County Chapter MTA annual dinner meeting for $30 and mileage.
I thought it took it off.
Or, it actually can be whoever, but nobody else put any to go. I'll do a motion before I discuss it. Do you have it? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the supervisor to attend the St. Clair County Chapter MTA annual dinner meeting for $30 and mileage.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion. This is an actual chapter meeting with an agenda. It's not just a dinner. And the deputy governor is going to be there as well to speak on some issues that are going on throughout the state. So that is why I'm attending. Okay, so Lori made the motion, Sandy seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You guys have it. Okay, item number 7, approval of accounts payable.
Got some bills in here, didn't understand. We'll start with Johnny Chow on the same days that Duluth billed us for other, these bills don't tell us anything. Locate shut off, 3 hours. Did they tell anybody where it was?
Be close to
Oh, did they tell anybody where it was?
This is for mileage, so no, I don't have that on there.
It was for 3 hours also.
That's pay. That would be payroll.
Okay, did they say where it was at or anything? I mean,
This is what I get right here.
okay. Is it possible to get a little bit better description of where any
You
of
have a work
this
order?
takes place?
I don't get work orders from them, no.
Can we,
You want to make a policy?
Yeah,
to
we
where they
can
need to add
do
more
a-
documentation to what the work that they're performing?
Look at their contract and include that in their contract. That is a requirement.
So if I can add to that, when you look at the monthly December month bill, I believe is what you refer to this as, the times locate lines 3 hours in mileage, and then when you look at the rule, as Ken said, you can't say it's one or the other or the same. And is this under contract the way he's doing it, fall under contract, because I assume he's under contract now?
I don't know, this is the way we've always received their mileage and their time cards, and I know that I can't answer those questions. I don't know. This is how we receive the Duluth bills, and this is how we receive their time cards and their mileage requests.
John, his contract expired, correct? He's currently just,
There was a new prepared contract, I don't know what happened with that. Was that ever
It's just-
adopted?
it's just, he's just.
I know that the contract that was proposed, I drafted it, I know there was specific information that had to be provided with respect to jobs. That would detail all that information.
And
Irrespective of whether or not there's a contract currently, if you, then this is simply either operation of and that's an employee contract, but as far as the work provided, you're the employer, and you have a right to assert what you need in order to be satisfied that the work you performed is in accordance with the duties that you've charged any employee to do. So if you want to prepare up a work slip that has to be signed and has to vouch for X, Y, and Z, you're entirely within your responsibilities. And if the employee, any employee, doesn't wish to follow that procedure, then quite frankly, then it's your decision what to do from that point. You don't have to continue that relationship if you're not satisfied with the information that's provided. I mean, that's something for you to discuss. I mean, I'm not suggesting anything out of place here.
Well, I'm not saying you didn't
But-
do it.
But what I'm saying is that you determine what's necessary, not the other way around.
Could I get a clarification? You asserted that on Jonathan's, that he had charged us for mileage and time, and then Duluth turned around and
See, on the third,
charged us.
he located shut-offs, and on the third, Duluth did work.
They did work, but they cleaned pumps and checked valves on Station 1. That's
Okay.
not what they charged us for.
No,
They
this is,
didn't-
this
They
is
didn't
another.
charge us for, Duluth did not charge us for locating shut-offs.
But this is the Duluth guys also.
Duluth Construction has quite a few employees. Jonathan isn't the only
Well, then
employee
could
of
we,
Duluth.
could we get these broke down a little bit more by hours or by manpower or whatever?
Sure.
Are
we
these
can
flat
require
rates?
that. We can require that.
Okay, that's all I'm asking. Just so we got something to back it up.
So let her know what you want so that she can develop a policy. that-
There should be a breakdown of just a $950 bill, and did it take an hour, did it take a day?
How many men?
Was it 2 men, was it,
Hold on, let me get a new page.
and I'm not saying he didn't do it, but we should have something a little bit more detailed.
Well, to say that Jonathan did this and then Duluth charged us for the same thing is erroneous. He didn't do that. That
Okay.
is not what happened.
Just asking if it did.
No, he said that
Well, if you look at,
Jonathan charged us on these days and Duluth charged us for the same thing.
okay, which one is Duluth and which one is our DPW?
Jonathan Chop and Don Chop are our DPW.
Okay,
Duluth is a subcontractor or a contractor that we utilize for bigger things like main breaks and the valve work and the pumping station.
somehow it should be able, somebody else should be able to decipher it other than Don or John. They both
So we-
located lines in shut-offs on the third, and on the third, they checked valves and cleaned pumps for another $950. Theoretically, it'd be a pretty good day. Could there be a little bit better description, either up here
Sure.
or an hourly breakdown over here, or both?
I guess that's up to the board to make that determination on what it is you want to see on people's time cards.
Just what they do, and how long it takes them. If they're charging 3 hours, what did they do for 3 hours, and who was there?
then I would like a list so I can propose it to them. Or we can get a policy set in place or include it in their contract.
Time, material, and equipment.
Addresses would be nice. Addresses.
Well,
would be
and a
nice.
location.
I feel like you guys are attacking me on this.
No,
and
I'm not,
in
you're the one
charge
that's
of this.
defending it, I'm asking a question.
I'm not defending it, I'm,
If you were paying the bill out of your own pocket, you would want to know those things.
Again, the issue still like to also be addressed, you might want to get your contract in place.
Take a look at
And,
the contract maybe and some of these issues.
I know, I remember what the issue was, what was taking so long, it was the severance pay. And then it just got put on the back burner, so I'll talk to
But I
them.
know that these issues were addressed in that
They were, I
contract.
did put them in the contract, I
So
remember.
you don't need that to be in a contract, you guys
Right.
can require that in and of it yourself.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Then that was just the beginning. On Aetna's bills, do we have anything where any of this stuff went?
I have no idea.
I don't either. And a lot of them are just verbal per diem. Or verbal chop.
Exactly.
So what are you asking for on those?
If we're giving them a purchase order, could they describe what it is or where it's going?
I'm unfamiliar with purchase orders, so I'm not sure what all is included in the purchase order. The township doesn't utilize purchase orders.
No, but these people do. If we authorize them to buy something for us, can we have any notation of where it went?
Again, I just pay the bills. I don't sit here approving the bills. I receive the bills and
Well, then they
I,
shouldn't be paid until they're
they're
approved.
not paid. That's why they're in this packet.
But on here, we already have paid them some, have we not?
They were approved last month.
I know, and we kind of addressed this last month also, as far as getting these itemized a little more. Did we not?
I don't recall talking about Aetna at last month's
Well,
meeting.
no, just some of these bills, that's all. Can we get them itemized a little bit better?
The board is in charge of what we
Okay.
request, so sure.
Do we pick and choose and off of your sheet today, which ones we want to pay and which ones we don't? Is that what you're saying, since we approved the last ones?
I guess so.
Before we approve
That's-
these, we can pick and choose which ones to keep off?
Sure.
I mean, you're the clerk, you're the one that pays them, that's what I'm asking.
I'm the one that writes the check. The board directs me to write the check.
Okay.
I think that under the description would be best if they put the equipment they're using and include where they're using it. And why.
For instance, if you look at the one Aetna bill, it does say purchase order number. Some say per don, some say down. This particular one says Bruce,
Right.
and then it's got quantities and $442. But there are several here, thousands of dollars that verbal don, and it doesn't have it anymore. And I agree that some of these, we should know better before we just pretty much say pay. That's, I think, our responsibilities for the people that we represent, know where it's going, what's happening, and I'm sure they're not attacking you, as clerk. I think we have to work together to try to help you make this a little more transparent for everybody here.
So what do you guys think about that? As far as the description, where is it going and why?
Even on their forms, it says purchase order number, and then the one they did
But I'm
put
saying,
in.
is that what you want? Is purchase order and what?
At minimal.
Description, right. Just so I can give them an idea when I sit down with them.
This is the only descriptions that I receive. For instance, if you look at the 4th page statement, they don't give you any information. But the items listed on the statement are what's in front of it. Some of them maybe, I haven't checked the numbers, which give you that description, but I have no idea what those mean. Unit pit version. I've asked Don so I can pay them correctly, and I've asked before to let me know, and I bring it to the board and
Okay, so what do we want, guys? Let's just make the decision here. We know what's
So-
missing, what do we want to see?
When I suggest you have a purchase order for a specific amount of material or a specific kind of material, my suggestion to you would be is request a copy of the purchase order. And when you're paying, I assume you're reimbursing that for that purchase, but you should have a copy. If it's purchased for Cottrellville Township, in a Cottrellville Township project, then you should have a copy of the purchase. I mean, a suggestion to his mind is you should have a copy of the purchase order, and on that purchase order should be a description for a water main break at X, Y, and Z,
And attached to the bill.
and attach it for the request for reimbursement. Because if all you have is a statement that we purchased X, you should have the purchase order for X and where it was utilized.
See, some of the statements don't have an invoice, it just says verbal done, there's no invoice attached.
Again, these are procedures that it's solely up to you. But typically, when you're asking for reimbursement for a cost that you've expended as opposed to labor, you're asking for a copy of the purchase order or a copy of some invoice that suggests that this is where the amount purchased and what it was purchased for.
Like I said, where it's
That's not
going and
unusual.
why.
Where it's going, why? Same thing in the bills, just broke down a little bit
Same
more.
thing with the DPW and the mileage, give the address. If you're putting on a water meter, what address are you putting the water meter on?
exactly.
Is that agreeable?
So we have some work to do.
We have asked about that, me and Lori.
Yeah, we have
before.
asked many
Lori
times.
has tried to get.
I agree.
Invoices, we tried to get more addresses so we can put it in the actual water system. So,
So maybe,
So is there a purchase order type thing through utility billing that would identify which went where? Are you familiar with that at all, Sandy?
Well, he can write down when there's a bill from the supplier, the address, so it's on your bill.
and there should be a work order too.
There should be a work order for this.
I mean,
You should know that it went to such and such a house or location or anything.
So we need to look into creating a purchasing policy for,
I would think it would start with a work order. If you're gonna purchase something.
there is one. There's one on the water bills.
yeah, there's
Well,
that
this description.
It
application.
doesn't, nobody, they're not used though.
We've
Yes and
asked,
no.
we've asked for that to start
I know,
happening,
yeah,
but it
yeah.
hasn't.
Then you don't pay them. If you're asking them and telling them, then you don't get paid.
I guess that's the question. We just continue paying, say,
No.
okay, but let's look
So
at
we
it
make a
right now.
decision now as the board is as of right now, they need to put a description as to why they're purchasing it and where's it going on their purchase orders as well as their mileage, why they got called out, where they went to, what the address was for the
You're on
meters.
board.
So I make a motion, we do that, who seconds?
I second it.
Hold on, let me get my right page. All right. Okay,
Ready?
sure.
You want me to make a motion, you guys?
Yeah.
Make the motion that we require Duluth Construction and the employees of Cottrellville Township DPW to document where they're going on their invoices, why they purchased material, what address they used it at. Did I say what for?
Yeah.
And also that they document the meters, when they put out new meters for the addresses that they're at.
Okay.
That the meters are at. I have a second.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to our next item.
Which is,
Consent agenda, continuing education request. So you want to go down A, B, C?
Was that all the questions you had with regard to those invoices? Because we need to approve those invoices so I can pay them tomorrow. You took all of those invoices out of the consent agenda, so every single invoice in here is not being paid or not approved to be paid unless we approve to pay them.
well, that's what I was asking, can we take out just some? And you said we can do whatever we want.
Sure. So let me know which ones.
Do you guys want to take them out or approve these and then adhere to what we just passed for next month?
That's fine too. As long as it's addressed,
Do you want
because we've discussed it.
to
Quite a few
accept
times.
this for this meeting and then adhere to this policy as of right now? Like, do we vote on this?
As of January 1? Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I need a motion to pay for the accounts payable.
Make a motion that we'll pay the accounts payable that Lori gave us.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Item number 8.
8.
Okay, continuing education report. You want to go down to A, B, C, D? Okay.
Probably.
Item A, Board of Review members to attend Board of Review training on February 2nd with mileage. That's Barb, Dennis, Alice, myself, and Ruth. For Board of Review.
Who is that? Barb?
Barb, myself, Dennis, Ruth, Alice, and Bill Wright, all the Board of Review members. And it's from 9 to 12 in Port Huron, and Barb and Ruth filled up the day.
Do we have a total cost on that?
The total cost is
$75 or $125.
$125.
Per person?
No, it's
total.
$25 a person.
And is everybody driving for mileage?
I'm not sure who's doing what.
Here's the information thing.
But if,
I'm not running.
Ken, and you're probably aware of it, but there is mileage and education still available in your budgets, just so you're aware of it.
Just asking.
I know, that's why I'm saying, I'm sure you are.
All right, what are we doing? Do we get a motion or no?
Is there a problem with that request?
Do we do them one at a time, or do we have to do all 4?
You can do them one at a time, or you can talk about them all and then just do them all in one motion.
Okay.
Good, let's do them. I'll make a motion, we let the Board of Review go to training on February 2nd.
A second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, this one, there's a change, I didn't get to it. I'm not going to Farmington Hills for the project management workshop. I'm going to Troy tomorrow instead of Farmington Hills on Friday.
So that's January 15th in Troy as opposed to Farmington Hills in,
And this is for what?
This is for a project management workshop, which here is a more,
Is this for a park project?
yes, because we need to figure out what we're gonna do with that. And we have a time constraint as to things that we have to have done for our grant and the way to do it and with everything else. Basically, it just reiterates the planning process, what things we want to keep in, how to avoid miscalculations, communication.
How much will it cost?
It doesn't cost anything, it's just the mileage.
Meal and mileage. Any idea what our daily thing will be?
The mileage, well, how far is Troy from there?
50 miles.
50 miles. 50 miles. And it's in my budget. I still have quite a bit in my budget for mileage. I actually have $1,500 in my budget. I've only used, we're at the last quarter of the year and I've only used 40% of my mileage. Okay, so what are we doing on that one?
I'll make a motion to the supervisor attend the project management workshop on January 15th in Troy, as proposed.
Any second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This one, supervisor attends financial statements workshop on the 22nd in Troy. This is at the same place the following week. Once again, just mileage, but these are the statements that I have a hard time when we get it through our auditors and that. And being that I'm in charge of our township budget, I would like to be able to explain better when the questions come up and more thoroughly and be more confident about what I'm reading and what I'm explaining and what the auditors are telling us when we're looking at them instead of just looking at them and seeing numbers. I'd like to know where the numbers go, what they mean, and be more thorough with that, and be able to explain it to my board in case they don't know. So what are we doing with that?
Make a motion that you attend it.
I'll second.
Will it help you understand invoices?
I got those, this is financials. Matt seconds, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, and this last one with regards to the citizen planner, we have our master plan coming up for the Parks and Rec. And we're looking at, I know the planning commission is looking at the master plan with how far we're into, how many years now?
I believe it's 16.
16,
20.
and have we been following it? And that, when I read it, I'm not very familiar with the planning process in the ZBA, and I actually am not, I know a resident had I did not know, first of all, that Pat had the book, because she had the book, so I didn't know. And second of all, I'm not requesting the mileage because I'm actually not going to be in the office. The days are on Tuesdays. And I'm not leaving from the office to go to Port Huron at 6 o'clock because I won't be here. I'll be not here. So I wouldn't even request the mileage because I'm not coming from the office. You know what I'm saying?
Not a word of that, but.
It's like, I'm not gonna request the mileage because I'm leaving from home to go to the
Oh.
class. I'm not leaving from the office to go to the class, so that's all on me. And I am within my budget for the $295
Is
that
that
it
each?
costs. Yes. And I did go to it yesterday, and actually, the very first night, there was a lot of quite a few things that I forgot about. And I don't even know what our planning policy is. What our members, what's your policy when you guys are planning something? What do you guys do when somebody has a conflict of interest? There's just so many things that I sat there and listened to last night that I'd forgotten about. And I said, wow, okay, not bad for 3 hours, and I have 2 pages of notes for the planning commission that I need to ask them. You know, how do we pick who our planning commission people are? How do we pick who our ZBA people are? I mean, just, I could go on and on, but it just taught me a lot and reminded me of a lot of things that I'd forgotten my first day. And I did forego the MTA conference, which would have cost the township $1,500 if I would have attended the whole week that they wanted us to attend, because I thought it was more beneficial for me to spend the $300 and be more knowledgeable when our planners want to charge us $17,000 and I have no idea what they're talking about. So that is what I chose to do instead.
I'm all for education, and you know that. I just, under the budget, looking at your expenditures, I don't see where that money would come from. Under education, training, and conferences, you use 93%.
Well, because I paid for the MTA for that week for my classes, because I was actually going to go to the grant writing class as well, but they haven't reimbursed it yet.
So it's not reflected on
That's
this.
not reflected in this.
Okay.
So it's more than that.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion that you go to attend the citizen planner classes. And Lisa.
Can I give a second, please?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Moving on to public comments. I can't see.
Mr. Barnes.
Mr. Barnes?
I have a lot of public comments, so I'll try to keep it down. Number one, I asked somebody last week, or last meeting, I was on a commission, compensation commission. Now, I haven't gotten any calls about having a meeting, and I believe it's this year. Now, according to the responsibilities, it says that the commission is always in force unless voted out by the board of directors. So I want to know what we're going to do, and you have to pick out the people. So I want to know what you're going to do about the compensation commission that should be taking place now for any raises, okay? Number one. Number two, we got a lot of great people on the board here. I asked a question last week, and it wasn't even a suggestion, and it wasn't even mentioned today, and that was how you were going to run your pay weeks, you know. So there was no feedback on that. Okay, as far as tonight's concerned, how do we communicate with you, all of you on the board, when we have no information and we get the agenda here and it says, we're going to approve this, we're going to approve this, we're going to approve this. I don't know what you're approving. I don't get a chance to read it. Is there any way we can get any of this kind of information, just like you all do, so that we can look at it ahead of time? So if we have questions, we can ask our trustees or the supervisor or the clerk or anybody, you know, to bring up a question for discussion. How can we do that? After it's all done, then you're not going to go back to it, okay? So we don't have anything, and I don't want to cause a lot of trouble, and I don't want to come and say, well, hey, the Freedom of Information Act, I want to read all this stuff so I know what's going on, okay? Because I know you're doing the job, but I'm sitting here listening, and I don't see all this stuff, and I want to see that more, okay? And as far as this payment of stuff is concerned, when I worked in, let's say, I did accounting. I worked in a supermarket business in management for 43 years. We don't pay nothing, okay, unless we got an itemized statement as to what was involved. If they purchased something, cost of that equipment, their hours, their time, like you said, where was the thing, and you got a documentary. If something comes up and something happens, and you go back and say, well, that was fixed. Well, we paid for it, but we don't know what it was. You have no way of going back and holding somebody responsible for what they did, because you have no idea what they did. So I think everybody should put down what they did, itemize it. You don't go get your oil changed and the guy comes out and say, you cost me it's $29. They usually come out and say, well, we checked your oil, we put 8 quarts of oil in, oh, you need a new filter, so we put that in. They give you an itemized statement for as simple as an oil change. And
That's
we're
your
dealing
time,
with-
Mr. Barnes.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you. You have a phone number and an email address before you leave?
I don't like being the person that has to say your time is up.
Too bad. Anybody else? Okay, can we get nobody else? Motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion for adjournment at 8:51.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
You were going to, I had to.
No, I-